Excellent. Hello, everyone. My name is Sharon Lombard. I work in the Dean of Students office here at the Tempe campus, and I work in student advocacy and assistance. Thank you, Tessie, for inviting me today to share what student advocacy is, what we do here, and how we support students. I think it's a really important discussion, especially in these uncertain times. Our office has been around for a long time. A lot of people don't know about us. And so I think it's timely to discuss not only how we normally support students, but also the students who are experiencing higher stress levels and higher concerns now that we're facing the pandemic and how it's affecting our campus. So what I'd like to do is, Tessie, if you can, look for questions in the chat. I am open to taking any and all questions. Hopefully I can answer them all for you through the presentation, but if you have a question, post it in chat. Tessie can look at my natural breaks and let me know if there's questions, and I'll get those answered for you. All right. So first thing you need to know for anyone who's faculty and staff here, that student advocacy is here to help you as well as the students. We want to make sure that you have a space where you can go to ask questions on how you can support students. And really our role here is to take the burden off of you. Our job here is to work with difficult situations with students, with any situation with a student, but our role is here to help, to take the burden off you so you feel as if you have someone else to go to if you're experiencing something with a student that is completely foreign to you. We don't expect you to be counselors, we don't expect you to be case managers or social workers. We just want you to know that we're here to unburden you and take the load off. A lot of you have probably heard of student rights responsibilities. That is the other side of Dean of Students. We do work closely with them, but we are the softer side of Dean of Students. So what we do is we provide resources, we assess student needs, make sure they're getting what they need on and off campus to be successful and to continue to be ASU students when at all possible. We're going to talk about today what to refer and how to refer it. We're going to talk about how we operate in a trauma-informed lens. We're going to touch briefly on mandatory reporting. I'm sure everybody here has done that training and you know what that means, but I do want to touch base on that to talk about how to put that in practice with you and your students. We're going to talk about the big C, COVID, and how that's kind of changed the dynamics here on campus and how it's affecting students. And then again, we're going to talk about how and when to refer. I think that's, I've said that twice now, but it's really important for you to know how to do that. All right, so in a nutshell, what we do, and this is a really high overview of what we do, is we want to get our students to that graduation cap. And so we have the CAPP of what we do. The first thing we do is connect students to on and off campus resources. Whenever we hear of a student with any need, we invite them to meet with us. We sit down and talk with them and assess their needs and determine what would be the best fit for them in terms of solving their issues. And so it could be on-campus resources such as counseling, first year success. It could be off-campus resources like food resources or housing resources or some type of mental health or behavioral health services. We assist students in problem solving. We know a lot of our students come here, especially our first years and second years, who have never had to adult on their own before. And so they just don't know how to do certain things on campus or in life. And so we're here to help them problem solve their situations and navigate the systems here on campus. As many of you know, financial aid, for example, is a group with all their own language and federal regulations. And so we do help students in any arena try to navigate the steps in solving the problems with those groups. We help plan next steps toward resolution of their concerns or issues. And then finally, our fourth P is we practice via a trauma-informed lens. Again, I'm going to talk about that more, but keep that in your head because it's a very relevant practice today, because most of our students are dealing with multiple issues, not just one issue. And so we have to always keep in mind how we approach them and how we serve them looking through a trauma-informed lens. All right, so types of referrals. This is, again, the graduation cap, and this is a word salad of the types of referrals that we handle here. The tiny words are smaller referrals, and the bigger words are the more relevant and more prevalent referrals we get. So the biggest one you see here is psychological wellness. We do know at any given time during normal quote unquote times, don't even remember what that is. I can't remember before March when all this happened, but in normal times, at any time during a year, 40% of the student population will report sadness or depression or loneliness. And so we're dealing with a lot of those issues. Students being referred to our office for those behavioral health issues, needing referrals to resources, or just needing some support. We have physical health problems that are referred to our office. Students, I remember students who were being hit by the electric scooters and having, broken legs and broken limbs and any type of physical health issues. We also deal with academic and departmental issues, students who are upset about grades or don't appreciate how their professors have spoken to them or communicated with them. And so we work with the student on how to manage those situations. But then we also have the Title IX situations, sexual misconduct, sexual harassment, just general harassment or bullying on campus. We do deal with any student death, family issues. So you can see it, we do a wide variety of problem solving here, and there's no problem too small or too big to refer to our office to assess students. All right, so we get to the, I keep giving you the little trauma-informed lens piece, but this is what trauma-informed means. We know that all of our students come to our campus with experiences that we don't know about. We know that many students have experienced trauma in their lives. They've experienced the death of a family member. They may have experienced physical abuse, sexual abuse. They may have experienced substance abuse within their families. There's a whole variety of trauma, they're called ACEs, adverse childhood effects, that happen to students that we're not aware of. So we always know that they come to us with varied life experiences and that we have to approach them knowing that what we don't know about them and how we approach them can affect them in a way that could be traumatizing. So when we talk to a student, we're always looking at the whole person rather than just an incident. What I often find out when a student comes to me, say for a financial need, we start talking to that student, assessing how they're doing in off campus, on campus, besides the financial, and we often find that there's other underlying issues. It's like peeling back that onions. All students are like onions, are like ogres, like they always have multiple layers. And so we find that when we're talking to a student, we can't ask them what's wrong with you, because that's not trauma informed. What we're always thinking about is what's happened to you that's gotten to you this space where you're having the financial issues, or perhaps that you're thinking about hurting yourself or hurting others, or that you're just feeling unhappy all the time. And so that's the trauma informed perspective. And I would just suggest to everyone in their practice with students to keep this in mind, that our students are multidimensional, and school is not the only thing on their plate right now. And there are so many other issues that can be impacting them. So it's not just the moment in time for them. Does anybody have any questions about that? I'm assuming a lot of you might have heard of trauma informed, but that's how we operate here. All right. So mandatory reporting, dum, dum, dum. Mandatory reporting. I hope everybody's taken their training. You have to do it often. We do know, some of you might have heard that there have been some changes in Title IX regulations this year. There have been changes. It's really more about the process and how reporting takes place, and certain identifiers for the Title IX process. What you need to know as a mandatory reporter is that you still have to report anything that you consider harassment or other types of sexual misconduct to appropriate officials. Appropriate officials can be my office. It can be Jody Prudhomme, who's a Title IX coordinator. It could be student rights and responsibilities. There's really no wrong door to report those things, but you must report them. You're required as employees to report those issues to someone to make sure that those students are being served and that you are fulfilling your requirements as an employee. It gets tricky though sometimes, right? Because some people are like, well, I don't know what to report. Is the information they're giving me really a Title IX report, or is it just that they're concerned about someone? So I'm going to simplify this for you. So instead of thinking of it as just sexual misconduct, sexual harassment, discrimination, I would suggest that whenever there is a health or safety issue reported to you, in whatever form that is, it could be in a journal entry, it could be a paper that's submitted to a class, it could be verbally telling you or sending you an email that something's happened, but report all health or safety issues to our office, including harm to self or others, including Title IX situations, including suicidal ideation or suicide attempts. And that way you've covered your bases. Like, you have completely covered your reporting requirements, and then we're going to be able to assist the student with whatever need they have. It is especially important to refer students who are reporting suicidal ideation or suicide attempts immediately to our office. We do have a process in which we make sure that that student's okay in the moment, and we get them connected to whatever services they need in the moment. So, but just simplified, you are a mandatory reporter for Title IX. However, please report any concerns for health or safety to our office. It's so weird doing these, I have to say, it's so weird doing these presentations to a screen. And I know I see people's faces and their backdrops, but it's really bizarre because I don't get a lot of feedback. So if I'm looking a little odd, it's because I'm not quite sure how I'm presenting. And if you want to do me a wave or something, or just say, hey, that's fine too. But I'm just going to continue going until someone has a question. Or thank you for the thumbs up. Samuel, thank you. I appreciate that. I love a little bit of feedback. All right. So let's move on. Okay, so the big C, COVID response. So besides all of the referrals we get for psychological wellness issues and Title IX and grade appeals and medical withdrawal requests about how to do that, all of those referrals that we were doing before and being very busy. And just to let you know, we have student advocacy offices at all 4 campuses. And so we have 3 student advocacy coordinators on the Tempe campus. We have 1 on every other campus. So there's, 6 of us who are managing 100,000 students. So it's a small caseload, it's fine. But what we found out when we started having to respond to any student who has a COVID-related issue, who's being affected by COVID, for any student who's tested or reporting that they've been tested, are in isolation or quarantine, it came back to the Dean of Students office to manage those students. So any student who's identified through ASU Health Services as being tested and giving permission to talk to us, we are reaching out to every one of those students, and we become their point of contact. So knowing that 6 of us couldn't manage the hundreds of students who were being tested and either being placed in isolation or quarantine, we recruited a whole bunch of people from EOS, and now we have 6 teams of 17 to 19 engagers who are assigned students who are tested and who are in isolation or quarantine to be their point of contact. And what point of contact means is we are providing one-on-one care for them through their entire duration of quarantine or isolation. We are assessing their needs. We're making sure they're getting food delivered, whether they're on campus or off campus. We're making sure that their financial needs are being met. We know a lot of students lost their jobs over since COVID started, and also families are being affected financially by COVID, parents who've lost their jobs who haven't been able to work. We talk about their academics, their health status, whether they need counseling services or not. We provide virtual engagement opportunities. And then we also offer to contact them as often as they want us to during the isolation or quarantine period. We'll call it the duration. So some students want us to call them every day. We do that even over the weekend. Most of them are like, oh, we're good, but they at least have our contact information. If there's any additional issues like needing a absence notification, our engagers come to it with the team leads who are the advocacy coordinators, and we coordinate with the different departments to make sure the students' needs are being met. And then, so for you, what you need to know is that this is not a mandatory reporting referral, but if you hear of a student may contact you, one of you, and say, hey, having a hard time because I was tested positive for COVID and I've been in isolation for 10 days. Please report them to our office so we can make sure that they're on our list and they're getting what they need. We do know that students who have meal plans on campus are getting meals delivered to them, but we have students off campus who may be in isolation, who may not be able to get food and groceries, and we have resources off campus as well to meet their needs. And so we just want to make sure that everybody's taken care of during this time, that ASU does have a pretty significant response. It's been pretty well managed. So I just want to let you know that we are here for your students who are saying that they're affected by COVID. And if you are aware of any of those students, please send their names our way and we're going to support them and assist them. And, you know, and we spoke about this a little bit earlier, but there has been an increase in those referrals because of anxiety, because of, you know, people are feeling very isolated because of all the Zoom meetings. They're feeling that they're not getting support. And so it's very important right now that we connect the students to all the resources we can to make sure that they're feeling engaged and a part of the school at this point, because some of them are not feeling that way. So we're getting a lot more referrals for anxiety and depression and some suicidal ideation because of this situation. All right. So how to make a referral. Let's see. So making a referral to our office is very simple. The first thing you really want to do when you're talking to a student, say you're on Zoom and you see a student who's been attending frequently and you notice a change in their demeanor, a change in their how they look. Maybe they're dirtier. Maybe you've noticed they might not have showered in a couple of days. They're disheveled, or they even make statements like, "I can't handle this anymore. I'm done. I'm out. I can't. Like, we're done here." It's really important that you engage with that student either in the moment and say, "Hey, can we talk after the Zoom call?" Or say, "Can we talk later?" And engage with them and say, "Hey, I've noticed this thing about you. I've noticed that you've really changed your behavior or whatever, and I really care about you, and I want to make sure that you have all the support you need. I'd really like to encourage you to contact Student Advocacy and give them the information to let them know that there's somebody out there, and to give them the empowerment and make them have them give them ownership over their own referral, asking for help, because that's a very powerful thing to ask for help. So we always encourage you to let the student know they have resources and they should reach out to Student Advocacy. The next step is to still email your concerns, even though you've told them to contact Advocacy. It's always good to email your concerns to our office. The email is deanofstudents@asu.edu. Or call our office at 965-6547. Please know, I'm just going to tell you right now that if you call us at that number, you may not get through right away, just because we are also fielding all of the questions that happen whenever the provost sends out a new announcement about changes on campus. And so we're also the point of contact for answering all those calls. So it would be good to do both, send an email and make a call. Be sure to provide the student's name, ID, and information about why you're referring the student. And so that we will then contact the student after we get that information. I contact my students within 24 hours of receiving a referral and try to meet with them within 48 hours. So it's a pretty quick turnaround for students. So just let us know that. And I have to say, provide their ID number, because some people don't, and we sometimes have students who have very common names and we can't find them. So please include the ID number. So if the student is in immediate crisis, it used to be, if a student is telling you, "I'm going to hurt myself," or you're really worried about them, they can't stop crying, and they just are overly emotional, and you're really worried about them, and you're like, "I really want to take you to counseling." It used to be you could walk them over. If you're on campus and you actually have an in-person class or in-person engagement with a student, you can still do that. They do have a limited amount of staff in counseling, and they're going to assess them and they're going to take their temperature and make sure they're okay to see somebody immediately. But oftentimes you may be engaging with a student on a Zoom call or on the phone, and you're concerned for them. You can do something called a warm handoff to counseling. You can call the counseling number, 965-6146, and ask to speak to the intensive care team. They have a group of counselors within the office who are going to deal with these immediate crisis situations, and they're going to talk to that student on the phone in the moment. And so suggest that, I'm going to call counseling. I really want to get you connected to them. I'm really worried about you. You can call counseling and say, "I have the student on Zoom call right now," and tell them what the concerns are. You might want to mute it for the student. You put the student on mute at the moment, talk to the counseling staff let them know what your concerns are, and then ask them to call the student. And they're going to call the student in the moment, and you're going to know that they call the student in the moment to make sure that their needs are being met in the moment. If for some reason the student does not want to engage with you, does not want somebody to call them, that's an immediate need to contact our office by phone and let us know you have a student in immediate crisis. And we are going to reach out to that student immediately and make sure that they're okay, either get them connected to on-campus counseling services. If they're not responsive to that or unwilling to do that, we're going to send a welfare check to whatever the location is to make sure that they're safe and okay in the moment. So please know that it's okay to ask questions of students and say, hey, are you okay? Hey, are you thinking about hurting yourself? I really want to make sure that you're fine in the moment. Nothing you're going to say to that student, if you present it in a caring manner, like letting them know that you are really worried about them, is going to make them do something. So don't be afraid to ask those questions if you're really concerned about a student. If you happen to be engaging with a student after hours, if you call the Impact 24-hour crisis line, which is on the screen, 480-921-1006, they work directly with ASU after hours counseling, and they're going to contact ASU after hours to get engagement for those students' needs at that moment if they're in crisis. And at the bottom of the screen are all the contacts that I've spoken about. There's ASU Counseling Services, the 24-hour crisis line, my office, student rights and responsibilities if you need to report a student's conduct. And then you can also file an incident report through that email on the bottom of the screen. All right, so now we're going to ask about situations, any concerns that you have. This is a great place to talk about any concerns that you have. If you want to talk to me about a certain situation that you have right now, we can do it as long as you don't reveal the student's name. Or any questions? Or you're just all tired and you just had lunch and you're just done.
Sharon, I'm one of the engagers, the SAA engagers.
Yes.
I just wanted to mention that I know we're touching base with these students, but whenever we are, 9 times out of 10, the students are just really grateful that they're having someone touch base with them. So if you're ever, I don't know, it might not be in my jurisdiction to say something like this, but if you're ever nervous to talk to a student about what they're going through because of COVID or something along those lines, just sharing that you're listening, I think is one of the best things that you can do.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Tessie. So Tessie is one of them. We have so many people who have volunteered or been voluntold to do this, and it has been a very rewarding experience to talk to these students because they're very grateful. Even if it's just the one touch base, they're just like, oh, thanks. Again, there's so much stuff out there about ASU and the COVID response, but we are doing a good job managing that.
Mm-hmm. Sharon, this is Kathy Winter over at Armstrong Hall. Actually, we've incorporated too, kind of like a standard email template. You guys have probably seen it, but we CC the student on the email, but we have in the subject line that it's, talking to the dean's office, but it's kind of like we're telling the student, thanks for reaching out, letting us know that you're having these concerns. We're sending this over to the dean of students office. They're definitely going to follow up with you. But that has seemed to work. I hope that that's true for the engagers as well, that it's we're trying to start that relay, Yeah. It seems like that way we're kind of covering that they know that we heard, they know that we're reaching out, but that it's really going to be now kind of the baton going to student advocacy or, dean of students, but it kind of shows them that we're all trying to work as a team. And I don't know if you guys have seen that on the other side for feedback, but I'm hoping that has worked well. At least on our side, it's kind of like they've been, like you said, Tessie, they're happy. They seem to be happy that someone has acknowledged, because I'm definitely seeing they're all at different levels of either physical pain because of COVID, emotional pain, baggage from home on top of that, academic stress. And so it's been kind of a nice beginning. And it kind of shows that, hey, we all have a plan of action, So at least so far, it came out of trial and error, but I think that it's kind of been a good way to go to. So anyway.
No, I think it's great. And what you brought up is very important too. And I think students really appreciate transparency. Like students, anybody appreciates transparency. And something I didn't touch on with mandatory reporting is also that transparency. So it's very important when you're talking to a student who may be reporting to you verbally or in writing. If they're coming to you verbally and about to tell you something and you have no idea they're going to tell you this, hey, I got to talk to you. And you may have developed a relationship with that student. They come to you often and talk to you about all kinds of things. And they start telling you about something that's happened to them. And there's really nothing more difficult than a student to hear halfway through, because they think they're just talking to you in confidence because you've developed a relationship with you, that now you have to say, hey, hold on, oh, I'm sorry, I got to report this now. And that really can be difficult for some students. So what I suggest everyone who's a mandatory reporter do is practice language on how to say that to a student before they start sharing something with you. And it may be something that you have to say to every student when they come to you to talk about anything, because you never know when they're going to drop some information on you that you have to report. Whenever a student comes to my office or I have a Zoom meeting with them, it's always, hi, I'm Sharon, explain my role. And by the way, I'm a mandatory reporter. So what that means today is that if you share with me that someone is trying to hurt you or you're trying to hurt yourself, I have to report that to make sure that you're okay and safe. So that's giving them information that I am not confidential and that I'm going to have to report if you tell me. And that gives them choice to tell you what they want to tell you. They may not want this to be reported yet, and that's totally up to them. But once they share it with you, whether you've been transparent with them or not, you still have to report it. So please practice that language. And it's something you shouldn't be practicing on a student when they come in. It should be something you practice maybe when you're driving to work, or you're brushing your teeth, or you're in the shower, or whenever you can have a conversation in your head, or even someone else in your family. Practice the language, because sometimes it's difficult to say those things to a student. But it's important that we're transparent with students. Let them know that the information that they're going to share may have to be shared with other places. You can let them know there's confidential reporting sources. Confidential sources include counseling services, include health services, and also our ASU Police Department victim advocates. And they're fabulous, and they're confidential resources as well. And they're going to help students navigate those situations without reporting it to the police or SRR. That's my soapbox. So, any questions about any of that? I don't see anything.
There's nothing in the chat either. So I guess like if no one has any questions, we can end this session a bit early and give you all 30 minutes back before the 2 o'clock sessions begin. If you want to stick around for a little bit, I can be here to maybe answer just some general student organization questions. So I'll stick around if you do want to talk about anything.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for attending today. Hopefully the information was helpful. If you ever have anything you want to just talk to me about, staff with me, like I have the situation, I don't know what to do about it, please feel free to call me. I'm going to give you my direct phone number. It's 480-965-4494. And so please feel free to give me a call, and I'm happy to talk about any situation with you. All right. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it possible to get a recording of the session? That's awesome.
I'm actually going to stop this recording now.
You guys, that would be a great